And Police Minister Poto Williams is with me now. Good evening to you.
Good evening. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Nice to see you. Right, let's talk about ram raids. There is a perception that the youth crime, particularly even in this city of Christchurch, is out of control. Look, there could be just a set or a group of offenders that are responsible for the 3 latest ram raids in Canterbury. But what's going on here? Why is it so bad under your watch?
Well, there's a couple of things to tease out. Ram raids are a spike at the moment. They're not a trend. They have been happening for a couple of months, and what is fueling this is often the notoriety that they get through social media. There's a lot of TikTok, for example, going on, because when you examine what happens during the raid itself, it's the stealing of the car and then the actual act of ram raiding. That seems to be what young people want to do, and they put that up on social media, because when you have a look at what is actually being taken, in many cases, there's very little, or it might be, cigarettes or some clothing.
Chocolate bars.
In one case, a liquor store was ram raided and no alcohol was taken. So there is a thing that's happening with our young people, and in saying that, we have to deal with it because it is causing our community some distress. In some parts of New Zealand, it is worse than others, but it is a lot of those influences that are creating a few copycats. We have to support our small to medium businesses who might not be able to get the kind of security measures in place for themselves. So as a government, we have to support them to do that, which is the work that we've been doing, and we will make some announcements next week.
I know there's things like planter boxes and different things that we can talk about. But when I think about that, I think, isn't that saying or sending a message that this is going to continue, therefore here's some planter boxes to put in front of your dairy to hope that, the car doesn't smash into your window? And I just wonder what message that sends to these kids that are so hell-bent on causing such destruction.
Well, we've always had issues with youth. Youth have always had the ability to cause us some problems. That's kind of gone from time immemorial. It's how you respond to that that's really important. So while we're concentrating on supporting our businesses to continue to operate safely, we also have to look at the interventions we need to make with our young people. So that's keeping them in schools. So many of our young kids have engaged from school. That's partly COVID, but that's partly a long-standing truancy issue as well. So how do we re-engage our kids in those types of places where, where they should be engaging in sport and other kind of activities? We made an announcement recently, my colleague Jan Tonetti did, around making sure that we try and re-engage our young people in school. Yesterday, Minister Radhakrishnan made an announcement on youth development. I know that there are 2 co-lead ministers who will be looking at this issue of how we support our young people out of this criminal activity and back into something that's going to be more fulfilling. And so those are things that and. As police, we have a role to deal with the crime. But as a government, we also have a role to support our young people to stay out of this stuff.
I don't disagree with that, and these all sound so well intended. But what are going to be the metrics to see that you've been successful? Because it seems, with respect, the government's made some well-intended good announcements recently, but we don't have any metrics to see whether they're successful or not. And so we throw a couple of million here, we throw a couple of million there, and we hope for the best, but we never hear about the tangible results.
Yeah, you don't hear about the tangible results. And I have to say that in Christchurch, the crime stats are trending much better in the last year or two than they have for some time. So we've got the stats that says that the interventions that we have been making has worked. This is a spike, and it's something that we have to deal with. Other than... are you saying,
sorry, interrupt, are you saying that crime stats are going down in Christchurch?
Yes, I am. There is one stat that is causing us some concern, and that is the taking of motor vehicles.
Yes.
So that is going up. There is also, in terms of some of the stats that we're seeing around the reporting of assaults, and that's not well report it, because this is really around family harm. We've seen huge increases in family harm, and in terms of what our police go out to calls of service, we've had somewhere in the region of 40% increase. It's the largest piece of work our police do. So assaults are really problematic, family harm is really problematic, and we are never really prepared to talk about how unsafe it is to be at home, how chaotic some of our home lives are. And I think that's a bit of a problem for us as a nation. We should recognise that, and we should start to deal with it, because our police are seeing it every single day.
I don't disagree, but here's the problem with that, is that when I was out with Christchurch Beat Police several years ago now, every job, but apart from maybe one, which was an alcohol-related job, every job that police went to, I felt like they were being the social workers, not the crime prevention managers that they probably should be.
Yep.
So are we training all these new graduates that are 18, 19, 20 years of age with no life experience and putting them into situations where they simply can't cope? And is that actually fair on them, Minister?
Well, we have got the integrated community response model, which is led by police, but which has other government agencies and many social agencies at the table. And what happens is that the police will get the call out, and they will pass that information on to the appropriate agency to go on and do the work with those families and with those people to make sure that they don't continue to engage in family harm issues. It's a complex, long-standing issue for us as a nation. But I am confident that the two sites that have this model, Christchurch and Hamilton, have done some sterling work. And it's to the credit of the police that they have been integral in this, and their staff are trained to be able to hold the situation until such time as the social supports can get in around that. Look, the other increase in crime has also been around the issue of hate. And that's elevated post March 15, and that's something that, as part of the Royal Commission of Inquiry, we are required to do something about. But it's also a very topical issue, because it starts us talking about the freedom of speech, and where does that rub up against what our rights to be able to kind of say whatever we like. When does that tip into something that is harmful to our communities and harmful to a particular group of people, for example?
Can I be really honest here, now that you brought that up, but we're going down something different here? I wonder how much the government narrative has to blame for the amount of hate that we do see. Not necessarily crime, but there have been commentators both on the left and the right that have said the government has been divisive and not actually bringing people together. When you've got ministers, accusing people of being rivers of filth and comments like that. I wonder how much the government must take responsibility for the increase of intensity of people's frustrations.
There's certainly an intensity of people's frustrations, and that was very evident when we had the protests here at Parliament, that there are people who feel that their voices haven't been heard. And I know that there is a piece of work that we have to do to bring people back into the whole, to make them feel like they continue to be important members of our wider society.
How do we do that?
That's for our social experts to help us with that journey. People do have the right to feel like their views are really important, and I think that the last few months and post, the COVID kind of environment has meant that some people haven't felt that they have been heard. And, I know that there is a piece of work that we need to do, and we are thinking about it. It's not just for us, though. It is for all of us to contribute to that particular discussion and make sure that all of our members of our community and society feel valued, and that their views have a place.
Minister, a few final comments you brought up in terms of car theft in this city is skyrocketing. There's no doubt about it. A central city car park was broken into. There were about 20 cars on one floor that were completely smashed recently. It appears to be rife in this city. What are we doing about it?
So, I'm really confident on our Christchurch Police in particular being able to get on top of this. We are a service that is demand driven. So where the demand appears, the police will get in there and enforce. It is really distressing when your personal property, anything of, that you have is destroyed in this way. And I know that police are given the resources. We've, invested in an extra 100 police into Canterbury. And that's what we're doing as a government. Our response is to make sure that police have the resources, the people, the training that they need to get on top of these issues.
But to be fair, we are more of or the police force rather, is more of a reactionary agency. Yeah. I mean, I don't see police patrolling the likes of Litchfield Street, where they once may have done so, say, in the late 90s.
Yeah, you're right. Police are at kind of the sharp end of the crime, and what we do need to do as a country is make sure that we've got programs in place to support particularly our young people from getting into crime in the first place. One of the things that we've funded with this latest record announcement of funding of $562 million is $94 million, particularly around gangs, but keeping our young people out of getting into gangs in the first place. But there's also a piece where we have these community panels called Te Pai Oranga, community panels, where rather than putting people into the criminal justice system, we try and divert them out of that. So, if you have a criminal record, that has an impact on your well-being into the future. So that's a piece of work. But sitting below that is making sure that we've got the programs in place for our young people to stay engaged in school, to stay engaged in those things that will keep them tracking along and be successful and be able to fulfil their potential.
Okay, just finally, you just said $500 million. That sounds like a lot of money to me. Are you confident as policemen to say 1, 2, 3 years you'll be able to say or look back and say, look, we put $500 million into these youth programs and as a result, crime's gone down?
The $500 million is our investment into police. It's into their safety around tactical response. It's into putting into place the firearms register so that we actually get a handle on the firearms that are in our community, how they're dispersed, how they're sold and how they're controlled. It's also, as I say, into dealing with gangs, and it's about supporting our young people. So it's a package that, I can be very proud of because I will be supporting police to be safe, supporting our communities to be safe, and dealing with some of the real drivers of crime.
Nicely said. And nice to speak with you, Police Minister Poto Williams. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Lovely to chat.